Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I'm joined with my boy, John, from Everything BK Nets. John, really another disgusting effort that leaves more questions than answers. I really don't know what's going on with the Nets, but introduce yourself, tell us what you got going on, and then give me your initial reaction to the blowout loss to San Antonio.
Of course, Gary. Always fun to talk good basketball with you. Somebody always talk fun basketball with me. You can follow me on Twitter at OS91413. John, yeah, listen, the result, I'm fine with it. At the end of the day, we're in Operation Damage Control. Do whatever you can to protect this lottery pick. Forget about the wins. It's who's developing on this team, who's trying to earn spots, and who actually fits what we're trying to create right now because there are a lot more questions. We don't have a young core. You look at the Wizards, Portland, Detroit, and the Spurs. They have way younger talent than we do because they drafted well and they actually are building something. I don't know what we're building right now. Jordy, yes, he's built defensive principles, structure, program, identity, culture, all great things, but you need the talent. That's the one thing me and Gary always circle back is the talent. And the belief is that Jordy can take anybody in terms of great talent. That's very narcissistic and egotistical to assume that because not every player can go to that level. So the lottery pick really is our only real power chip right now. We need to do everything in our power to maximize these last 20 games and figure out who could be a part of this team's future. So I'm fine with the result, but yeah, there's a lot of pieces on this team that don't fit our puzzle right now. And should be about process and figure out who doesn't fit that mold right now.
I want to get into the game because the game was pretty much an absolute disaster. The first quarter started off okay. They got down. There was a complete lack of defense for a team that's been buying into Jordy. We're going to get it into Claxton, but it goes beyond Claxton. The amount of easy shots they got in the first half was stomach turning. Like, where was the effort? Look, I understand it's 82 games. You're going to have bad days. But this team, the success that they have had, the games they have won, they've won on one thing, on effort, outworking the other team, getting the loose ball, intensity on defense. That was nowhere to be seen yesterday. I mean, there was like almost no defense at all yesterday. What do you account that for? I mean, just a complete. Have they quit on the season at this point?
I mean, that's the thing. You wonder what are these players' reasons for doing what they're doing. You figure you got a lot of guys on prove-it deals this year, trying to get money, trying to get future contracts, trying to stay in the league. You got some guys who already got paid, like a Claxton or a Johnson, whose numbers are just average or below that. So it feels like there's not a set goal set. There's some nights where this team is locked in, energy, good vibes, let's kick some ass. Other nights it's like, damn, this team has no energy, no focus, no determination because there is no singular goals right now. We don't know who's going to be on our team this summer, and we don't know who fits the mold necessarily. We have some ideas, but ultimately it's up to the organization and Joy to figure that out. So I just don't think this team has set goals right now. So there are going to be some nights where they're showing you fight, other nights where it's like, I already got my money, or I know I'm going to get something somewhere else. So just not having a set goals is, I think, a big reason why the energy level was so bad. And Zaire Williams, he's been really great defensively this year. Let's call it what it is. Last night was probably one of his worst defensive games of the year. I mean, a minus 30, 7 points, definitely not something you want to see from Zaire because he's always been somebody that's giving you consistent effort pretty much all year. So that was definitely a little surprising, especially with Claxton, who we'll get into very shortly as
We're,
well. He's just had a
we're
really
going to
bad
get into
performance.
Claxton. We have some fury for Claxton, but I want you to settle this debate first. So
Mhm.
in the chat, we got two people. BTB says Beekman got to finish games for us too. Defensively, obviously, D'Angelo Russell leaves a lot to be desired. Beekman is the better defensive player. But Luke countered that point, I think, with an interesting point. I'd rather pick 30 than watch Reece Beekman play basketball. John, what side are you on in this debate? I get both sides of
Hey,
this argument. I do.
I
Reece
embrace the
Beekman's god
Reese.
awful.
Listen, I embrace the Reese Beekman era. Caw-caw! I mean, listen, offensively, guy gives you nothing, but he gives you some defensive effort, and that fits what you're supposed to do when you're trying to protect the lottery pick. That's why Killian Hayes should still be on this team. Offensively, doesn't give you a lot, but he passes out the ball. Like, this is my problem. The Johnsons, Claxtons, and D'Lo shouldn't even be playing this last stretch of 20 games. It should be guys like Beekman's, and Killian Hayes is getting all the burn because you know the result's not going to be anything great, and it's exactly going to be what it is. Protect your lottery pick. So I'm fine with Reece Beekman getting more time on the court. He's not a part of our future, but he's doing his job, which is to ensure your team's future. And that's why I think this organization has kind of got it twisted. They're not focused on the lottery pick like they should be this year. But I think some of them are, I think Jordy's starting to realize, you know what? We got to prioritize the future. As much as I want to win, I want to put myself above the team. I got to think about the team's future. So if these guys are starting to show lack of effort, it's because maybe everybody's trying to get on a goal right now, which is we just got to figure out who's a part of this team's future. So I'm fine with the Reese Beekmans playing because the results are going to be what they're supposed to be, protecting that lottery pick.
Let me ask you this question, John. Reese Beekman is god awful. He's probably the worst offensive player in the NBA, and I'm not even being hyperbolic. He is god awful. Honestly, is there a future Brooklyn Nets team in 2025 or beyond that Reese Beekman is a part of?
Probably not, but if you're tanking next year, I don't mind giving the kid a little touch better because he does his job well there. But yeah, you're right, Gary. Obviously, the Reese Beekman wouldn't be a part of our future, but this is why you got to call audibles. Let this kid get like 20 minutes a game the next 20 games because the results can be what they're supposed to be. Protect your lottery pick, but if you don't want to play him, okay, have fun with D'Lo ruining your lottery pick. I mean, it's quite simple. The roster decisions, the last stretch of 20 games are going to be very important in telling us what type of a goal does this team want to end the season with. Do we want to risk losing our pick and being a playing team, or we actually want to be smart about this? Try to fix that mistake and try to put ourselves in the best position to get an actual franchise potential prospect that could really be part of our future. Because guys like Reese Beekmans and Keon Johnsons, they are definitely not a part of our long-term outlook.
I want to ask you about this. Two people who I think could be a part of our long-term outlook, maybe, who knows, not saying that they are, but a better chance of them being here than Reese Beekman, who I get it. I get it, Lou. It is painful to watch him play, but if you stayed and watched the end of the blowout, you did get a Dariq Whitehead and Maxwell Lewis sighting the last 2 minutes of the game. Why not play these guys more? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not? Like, we know what Keon Johnson is. We know what Jalen Wilson. I get it. Why not get Dariq Whitehead and Maxwell Lewis some burn?
See, and that's a great point, and that's why, like, I bring this up to Breezy. Breezy always talks about player development's important. Well, it should be important these last 20 games. Screw the wins. We got to figure out if these guys can actually be parts of our future, especially Dariq Whitehead. I think Whitehead is in the most dangerous position out of a lot of these guys because, yes, we selected him, around the 20th. He was a potential former lottery pick before he hurt himself, but he needs to show us what he can do on the court and stay healthy because if we draft the next 2 years, he could easily be shuffled out of here. And he's not getting the burn. So really, the organization is not even giving him a shot. So I feel like Dariq White, if he doesn't start playing these last 20 games, I don't see a future where he could be on our team anymore. So I feel like guys like him and Lewis should be getting more burn. Forget about the wins. We should be seeing if these guys actually can develop. Can they develop offense? Can they develop defense? Can they show us something? But you're not giving them burn. Instead, you're having guys like Claxton and Johnson play 30 minutes a night, which I think is so counterproductive when their trade values are going down. So maybe we could self-correct this and let these guys get more burn, the young ones, and see what they can do because this should be an evaluation period. Win should not be the priority right now. It should be who fits this team and who doesn't fit this team.
I know you're chomping at the bit to get the Claxton. You're going to have to wait a little longer. We're going to get the Claxton. You can cook them, but you got to wait a little longer.
I'm being careful.
Lou thinks you think I stayed awake for the last 2 minutes of that game. Well, I got to do a podcast, so I did. I hope that you didn't. I expect that you did not stay awake for the last 2 minutes of that disaster. It's just the lack of effort. Like, and that's what really pissed me off. First, I want to get to the good stuff first. Yesterday, we did get to look at the greatest backcourt God ever created, D'Angelo Russell and Cam Thomas. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it was exactly what I told you it was going to be. They were going to get around 40 points. They got 36, which, kind of was on par with what I said. And if that could beat teams that don't have the best players, that could be what their best offensive combo is. But defensively, exactly, was a lot of negatives there. So maybe this combination, if they want to see what it can do, maybe it won't be as impactful. But at the same time, it could be impactful. But if we're in an evaluation period, maybe they want to see if D'Lo and Thomas can work together. So I think offensively they were fine, but obviously defensively, that's the combination that's not going to be something long term, especially if you draft well. So yeah, enjoy this in the short term, but I don't see long term benefit with these two, especially defensively. That's a huge negative.
I want to address this comment from BTB because I'm a Longhorns fan, so I'm like in a rare position where I'm a Trey Johnson fan and a Nets fan. And I was watching that game, and then after that game, I recorded the game on the SEC network. and it didn't record. It said it was blocked out due to restrictions. So then I went over to ESPN Plus app to put it on the app, and it didn't show the game. So I hear Trey Johnson killed it, but I wasn't able to watch the game. So I want to hear more about it. I'm going to try to go back and watch it, but you didn't get to see any of the Longhorns yesterday, right? They played Mississippi State. You didn't get to see any of that, John?
No, I didn't get to see yesterday. I was watching this game yesterday, so I
I,
didn't get.
I heard wonderful things that I didn't get to see it because I don't understand technology, I guess, but it blocked out my recording, so I went to the app to watch it on the app, and the app said I couldn't play it back. So I don't know, but I hear that he played really well and did exceptional things. How did he look, BTB? I want to hear about that. We talked about Dariq Whitehead and Maxwell Lewis. Cam Thomas in his return. I thought as a team, we shot 53s. He shot what? 13, 14? How many threes did he shoot? 13, 14
He took
threes?
13 threes, and he made 4 of them.
And he was killing it on the in the mid range and by the basket. This is what I mean by the lack of effort. They weren't hitting their threes. Him and D'Lo shot 21 threes between the two of them in a total of 25 minutes. Why did Cam settle for so many threes? And what did you think of Cam's performance? And why so many threes?
Yeah, I thought his performance was all right. It's his second game back. And for me, the playmaking would stood out. 6 assists. I keep seeing this. I really don't care about Thomas's offense right now because I know what it is. It's going to be good when he's healthier and more consistent. But I want to see what he can do with the playmaking aspect, defense, rebounding, because that's really going to be what sells him to be a potential piece of our future, especially with the contract situation. So I think the 6 assists is something that the GM and the owner should be looking at going, hey, if Thomas can show us he'd be a willing playmaker, a good teammate, and still fit in Jordy's system, that benefits him more than just being a ball hog. But I agree with you. Thomas missed a good amount of threes, and this is only him and D'Lo's first time working together. So obviously they're trying to figure out how each other work on the court. So maybe the next game they'll be a little more crisper. But I thought it was a good game for Thomas. I think for him, the playmaking is going to be a huge selling point for him in his contract negotiation. So I thought that was good for him, and 24 points, not bad. So hopefully the next 3 or 4th game he gets a little more reacclimated and keeps doing what he can do, because this is a very important stretch of games for Thomas. He's fighting for his future, a contract, and we still have to figure out if he's a long-term piece or he's that potential piece to get us who we want if we want to hasten this rebuild or whatever you want to call it. So it'll be interesting to see how Thomas finishes the season, but I think he's on a decent trajectory right now in the first 2 games since he's come back.
Yeah, I was happy with the way that he played, especially his playmaking and his passing. I was really happy with it. The shot selection, I don't like settling for all these threes, right? Like, I understood it when you did it against OKC, because how the hell are you really going to beat OKC? The only way you can hang in with OKC is what they did in the first half, is launch a bunch of threes and hope they go in. You're playing a team that's decimated with injuries as well. You don't have to attack San Antonio like that. And I just thought there was a lack of effort all around. And then they took 50 threes they took in it? How many threes they take in the game? 50?
They took 50, only made 17.
It's 50 threes in a game, John. That's more than 1 3 per minute. That's ridiculous. They took 36 twos and 50 threes. That's just bad basketball. I'm not even saying you shouldn't shoot a bunch of threes. They weren't hitting them. Jalen Wilson was the only one hitting them, which is interesting. But they kept launching them up. And it's like the lack of effort on defense, just like shooting a bunch of threes shows me a lack of effort on offense, right? Like, you're not trying to create, you're not trying to make basketball moves, you're just coming down and launching up a three. And BC is right. D'Lo's been shooting badly all season. This game to me was disgusting to watch as a Nets fan, as a basketball fan. It was like a complete lack of effort. Like, they weren't really trying to win. I don't care if you win or lose, but you can't play like that. Like, I don't know. What do you think of them shooting 53s, John?
Well, they did shoot a franchise 61 about a week ago, so this is kind of on par for the course of the crazy roller coaster ride that's been this season. But Gary, you made so many valid points. Like, as decent as the defensive effort's been most of the season, offensively, this team does not have that identity whatsoever. I mean, without Thomas, D'Lo, and the beginning of the season, Dennis, offensively, this team had no real self-shot creators, and that is a huge thing we have to figure out this summer. And in the draft, you need another shot creator. Hell, we need at least 3 to 4 to 5 more offensive components on this team. We can't have just two guys running the offense all the time because that's not a winning formula. So we have to fix this monotone roster construction issues we have because a lot of these guys aren't self-creative offense type guys, and that's a huge problem when you're trying to figure out who should be a part of your core. So this draft really is going to be essential, and the Nets maybe finding one or two offensive type guys that you can pair with the Thomas or whoever else you add this summer because we really do need an offensive identity, and we really don't have that right now. And like I told you, what is this team's goals right now? It seems yesterday was more individualistic. Get my shots up, play crappy defense, just another day at the office. Like when you have that mindset, it means there's some guys who really don't care. They played some games this season. They got some money. They're going to get money. So maybe some of them are already like punching the clock out saying, I did my job. Now I'm ready to either move on or get re-up with this team. But still, that's not a good mindset. That's why you have to figure out how can we get a real core in this team because this is a really core. These are guys fighting for their lives and their futures. So if you don't have set mind goals as a team, you're never really going to get anywhere as a team. And that's a huge thing that this front office has to figure out this summer. How can we get those real team mindset goals? And it starts with building a real core, which we don't have right now.
Which is why I want to see Cam. I want to see Clowney. I got a couple of questions, right? Like, so I have a question for you. Is Cam Thomas and D'Angelo hurt or are they healthy?
I think Thomas is healthy right now. He's looked okay. You know, he's trying to find the shots and all that. D'Lo, I don't understand why he's playing. I thought the smart thing would have been re-sign Killian, let him and Thomas get run together. I thought that was an interesting duo to see what they can do because
Everybody
his
thought that, John. I'm the
yeah.
biggest D'Lo fan in the world. I was saying, like, why is D'Lo here? I love D'Lo. Why is he here? I don't. Everyone thought that except for Sean Marks, John. So continue.
Yeah, it's wild to me. Like does D'Lo have an embarrassing Christmas card of Sean Marks or something? That's why he's getting all these minutes. And I know he wants to stay and all that potentially, but he wants money. At the end of the day, Sean Marks didn't bring D'Lo back to make up for past wrongs. That theory is complete BS. He did this for economic opportunity to give nostalgia back, 2019 vibes, hoorah, what have you. But it's not 2019 anymore. We're in 2025. We have 31 picks, and a guy like D'Lo is not a part of your future. He's a transitional veteran. There's some good terminology for people out there. He's a transitional veteran, not a real part of your team's future. He could help mentor some guys, but besides that, is he a huge fixture of your team? No. And right now, we don't even have a core. That lottery pick is our only power chip this upcoming draft. And having a guy like D'Lo play games down the stretch could ruin that. So he shouldn't be playing right now, but unfortunately he is. And the organization has to live with the consequences if on a certain night a D'Lo and Thomas combo wins you games that maybe you didn't think you were going to win.
You mentioned it. D'Lo wants to stay here. I want to get into this. I'm actually open to this. I know you guys are going to hate this, but I just want someone in the chat, someone watching to kind of agree with me. This isn't a horrible
Don't agree
idea.
with them.
D'Angelo Russell wants to stay in Brooklyn, according to Hoops Hype, and it's other multiple reports as well that D'Lo wants to stay here. I don't know who we're going to draft. That matters. But is there a scenario where you would want to bring D'Lo back on a one-year deal for a vet minimum next year?
Well, if I'm D'Lo, it's either the Shanghai Sharks or Brooklyn. Hey, I want to stay with Brooklyn. no, but listen, I think there is a possibility you
Well,
could
let me
bring
ask
back.
you, do you think that's legitimate? Do you think that for D'Lo, the reality of him being out of the NBA, do you think that's real?
I think it could be because you think about it, not a lot of teams want him. I have to, if we bought him, if he didn't get bought out, maybe there was no real belief anybody serious would go after him. So
Yeah.
that's why they kept him. But also at the end of the day, playoffs, you already know he can't start. I think D'Lo, if he wants to write his career, he has to be willing to accept a six-man role as a backup point guard. I think that's the only way I could see him stay in this league. But D'Lo, in his mind, he wants to come back to Brooklyn because he could still start right now. That's the reason he wants back, because he gets the ball in his hand. That's what I heard from the source material that you read today. But at the end of the day, that's not longevity-wise. If we draft a Harper or the following year we draft a Darren Peterson, D'Lo, you have to be willing to accept the bench role or you're gone. And that could potentially mean you don't be in the NBA anymore. So really, I don't see it making sense for us to have to keep D'Lo. If we do, okay, for a year. But we have to think about getting real long-term pieces. I don't like the fact that Sean Marks has this inability to move away from the past. We keep going back into the past with the Dinwiddies, the D'Los. Why not look forward into fresh faces, real guys? Like, we need to get out of the past because being in the past is just going to keep us stuck. So if he doesn't come back, we actually do draft a solid point guard in this draft. I think that's better for us. If we don't draft a top point guard, okay, Deal can go back for a year, but I don't think that benefits us.
let me let
with
me let
having
me
to
play
go
this.
back.
Let me play this both ways. Let's say best case scenario, we get Dylan Harper.
Hmm.
Awesome. Why can't D'Lo play a backup role? Why can't he play a backup combo guard 1-2? He plays off the ball with Harper, and he plays on the ball when Harper's off the court. Why is that not a possibility?
I mean, it could be for a year, but at the end of the day, what if D'Lo
Well,
closes more games than
I'm
Harper?
only talking about a 1 year deal. I would not give anything more than a 1 year deal. Just
I
just
know.
1 year deal.
I know, but given the fact that this team surpassed expectations, say they keep whatever's here, the Johnson clock still on this team, and D'Lo closes games than Dylan Harper, that could potentially ruin next year's draft odds. So keeping D'Lo has a potential for more risk because Jordy seems to want to go to the vets more than he wants to go to the young guys in clutch minutes. You've noticed that, Gary. That's a big the difference between us and these tanking teams. They are sitting their best guys in closing minutes. So far this season, I've rarely seen it in close games. I've seen Jordy go to the Johnsons, the Claxtons, the Dennis Schroeders, the D'Los because he wants to win those games. So if you keep D'Lo, that is the potential risk you run. If we're being competitive and surpassing expectations again, D'Lo could make that 3-point ice in his vein shot and potentially ruin your draft odds. That's the only risk I would see with keeping D'Lo if you draft Harper. But it could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it could. But there's risk there potentially if it happens. That might not
So
help you.
the other thing is, if we don't draft one of those point guards, if we don't get Pierce, if we don't get Ego, if we don't get Harper, and we draft other needs, and we draft a wing and a big, whatever, why not bring him back to run the point?
I mean, you could. I mean, if you look at free agency this year, let's say we don't get a top point guard. This is your hypothetical now. The free
Right.
agency this summer, like I said, it's the Sahara Desert. It's dry as can be. And you look at the point guards that are available. The only point guards that are available is Tyus Jones and
Well,
D'Lo and
Trey
Fred
Jones is
VanVleet.
available too, right? Or did he sign a deal? Did Trade? Yeah, continue. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
Trey
I'm not
Jones.
sure. I'm not sure about Trey Jones, but those three, Fred VanVleet's probably going to stay with Houston. Tyus Jones and D'Lo are probably the main guys available. So yeah, you could bring D'Lo back in a 1 year deal, but that should be it. It shouldn't be a 1 year deal turns into a 2 year deal. Like that's my worry with Sean Marks. He has this inability to let go when the time is right, and he did let go of D'Lo when he had KD, Kyrie, and James. So now you brought him back because you want to sell some tickets and look bring some nostalgia back. But there has to come a time and a place where we get away from the crappy nostalgia and just focus on a whole new era, fresh faces, new guys that can really be a part of Brooklyn culture and bring it to the future. That's my whole problem with this organization. I feel like we're stuck in the past. We're in 2019, but we have 31 picks now. Like, I feel like we should be out of that mindset. Like, why are we competing when we have over 31 picks? That's been my problem this year. It feels like Sean and Joe feel stuck in 2019 where you have to bring a mishmash of guys together. You're still being competitive. You're winning games. You're surpassing expectations. But the thing is this, we were a half a game about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were a half a game behind the Bulls for that playing spot. If we get into the playing spot, you're expecting us to have the same type of luck the Hawks did when they got Rubishir last year. That's an anomaly. So to expect us to have an anomaly a 2.0, it's a huge gamble. Why would we gamble ourselves like that? Instead, take the easy route and lose as many games as possible and secure your lottery pick. That should be the goal right now. So yeah, if you want to keep D'Lo for a year, okay, but it should be no longer than that. After that, it should be D'Lo. It's been fun 2.0 comeback, but we got to move on. That's the only thing I would have my comeuppance with Sean Marks is if it's anything more than that, we're setting ourselves back for no reason at that point.
I think Lou's correct. Sean Marks going to bring Patty Mills back in free agency.
Harris LeVert's a free agent. LeVert's a free agent, so
Let's
expect the
do it. Let's
unexpected, right?
go. Let's go. If they get Levert, I will buy a Levert jersey day one when they sign him.
Hey,
All right. Let me ask. Okay, so I wanted to ask this before. If D'Lo and Cam Thomas are healthy, why are they on a minutes restriction? If they're hurt, why are they playing at all? I don't understand why they're both only playing half the game. Are they on a minutes restriction because they're hurt? If they are hurt, why are they? What are we? What is it? The playoffs? Like, what are we trying to win? Like, or if they're healthy, why are they on a minutes restriction?
It's again this whole year has been questionable decision after questionable decision. If they're
I
not
just don't
fully
understand.
healthy,
I don't
why
understand.
why run the risk? And honestly, that's why you should have kept Hayes. Let him and Thomas get burned. If you want to minus Thomas's minutes here and there, okay, makes sense. Thomas is going to get 20 points a game, but he's not going to be the only guy carrying your team when you don't have a set team. So I would have been fine with that. But now you're playing D'Lo, playing Thomas, you're minimizing the minutes. What are we doing here? Why not just sit D'Lo, Johnson, and Claxton down entirely these last 20 games? Tell them, great season, guys, but we want to see what these young guys can do and see if one or two of them fit our roster next year. It should be as simple as that. But it's not simple because the coaching staff and the organization are not in lockstep with each other. There are some differing philosophies here, differing goals, and it feels like they're on two different planets right now. So whatever crap's going on there needs to stop this summer. This should be a head moment where these guys just figure out what are our goals. Are we trying to be a playing team? Are we trying to be a playoff team or a rebuilding team? Because it feels like we're in the middle. But when you're in the middle, there's more cause for error than success there. So we have to
So
figure out what's going
we're
on there.
60 games into the season, and we still don't know what path they're taking. This is what's so frustrating about the
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
I think they're tanking, but like if they're tanking, why is Killian Hayes gone and D'Lo playing? I think BTB makes a good point. They're probably going to resign him for his leadership. I do think this, and I said this a couple of weeks ago on Breezy's podcast. Everyone laughed at me. I said it's better than a 50-50 chance D'Lo comes back next year. Like, I would bet on it. I think D'Lo will be on this team next year on a 1-year deal. I want to move into the topic I know that you're passionate about.
Mm.
There was no Wemby, obviously, for San Antonio. So that means Nick Claxton had an easy night last night, right, John?
Oh yeah, very easy night. He got his ass kicked.
By who?
Bismack Biombo. As I say, Biombo, Bismack
Yeah.
Biombo.
Any big man with any girth, any size, absolutely dominates Nick Claxton. Picks on him, big boys him. Nick Claxton, it was John. Go ahead. Cook Nick Claxton. I mean, this was so bad yesterday with him.
Man, we could probably do
Bismarck
it.
Biombo is eating your lunch for you?
How,
Wow.
how, how about he made Claxton cook him breakfast, lunch, and dinner after we did to him last night? Forget that. But yeah, listen, we cook on this for an hour, but I'm gonna try to keep it straightforward. You remember Rocky Six? Rocky comes out of retirement. He expects to play some exhibition boxing matches. His boxing specialty years, but they decide to promote him against the champion, the current champion, and this guy doesn't think Rocky's gonna do much. That's what happened last night. Bismack Biombo was Rocky, an aged veteran, and Claxton was this up and coming young prizefighter champion, and Bismarck absolutely wiped the floor with him. That is insane to me. I mean, we saw recently Jalen Duran, one of the youngest centers in the league, be way better than Nick Claxton physically and offensively. And now you fast forward to Bismack Biombo. He wasn't even on a roster till 2 weeks ago, Gary. He was on a 10-day deal, and now he's with the rest
I
of the
didn't
season.
know
This guy
Bismarck
comes in and
Biombo was still
bops the
alive.
floor with
Bismarck
him.
Biombo. I looked at the name. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like this is like this is a ridiculous tank job by San Antonio at this point." And then he ate my boy's lunch. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is unwatched. Nick Claxton, you're getting destroyed, eaten alive by Bismarck Biombo.
This is insane. I mean, he got
He
14
had no
rebounds.
offensive game.
He
He
du-
had no offensive game in 2015. Now he's like, oh my gosh.
He doubled the rebounding of Claxton. Claxton had 7 to his 14. He had a minus 17 to his positive 17, and he dropped 13 points to Claxton's 6 points. And Dayron, he got in foul trouble last night, 2 points. This guy offensively destroyed both of them. This is why I think the alarm button should be going off a bit. I really think we need to address our center position this summer. I don't think the Claxton Dayron combo is good long-term wise because Dayron, he's not going to get the allotted time to show what he can really do, especially if Claxton's playing 30 minutes a game and getting demolished by aging veteran centers. And Dayron, unfortunately, he either gets into foul trouble or he can't dribble the ball. So we have to get a new center. I mean, look at what the league is going into with the Wembys, the Zach Edey's. You have Porzingis on the Celtics, and you have Nikola with the Nuggets. You need a legit big man that offensively can do a lot without a point guard doing all of his work and a guy that can compete against the best bigs. We have an undersized power forward in Nick Claxton who has no offensive game. And you have Dayron who could be a potential power forward, but his offensive game is limited as well. So you got to address the situation this summer. If we miss top 6, you got to start looking at Common Maliewalker, Derek Queen with your lottery pick. We need an actual big because this is just atrocious. It's embarrassing. It's not good. If we're never going to be a legit team, if we don't have a solid big man that can do a lot offensively and defensively, and Claxton Daron, quite frankly, can't do that consistently enough, and that's a huge, huge problem.
I'm going to do this again because I promised you guys I'm going to do it every game. But however it ends up is how it ends up. So he played 32 minutes, was a minus 17. We're going to get to Zaire in a minute, but hang on. Nick Claxton was a minus 17 in 32 minutes, we'll call it. And Day'Ron Sharpe in 16 minutes was a plus 3. John, every single game, this is the case. Like, Nick Claxton is being paid $27 million this year to do this. There's 3 years left on this deal. We're already talking about drafting a center to replace him when he's got 3 years, $75 million left on his.
This shouldn't even be a stat right now. The guy wasn't on a team till 2 weeks ago.
John, is this the worst contract? Is this the worst long-term contract in basketball? I'm being serious. Ben Simmons' contract is done. We bought him out. Not on the Nets. Is this 4 years, $100 million for Nick Claxton the worst long-term contract in basketball?
I can't give him that fully because Bradley Beal, I think, has the worst contract. But if you talk about centers only, it's a pretty abysmal contract because you think about it, is Claxton a center or an undersized power forward? Because most nights I look like I'm seeing an undersized power forward, and that's not a successful formula. And this is crazy. The guy was on a team 2 weeks ago. He just got signed to the rest of the season with the Spurs, and you go out there and embarrass Claxton like that. Claxton didn't show no fight last night. He got out-rebounded, outmanned, outgunned, outmuscled by a guy who's at the end of his career. That's insane! And listen,
big boyed and bullied around by Bismarck Biyombo. Like, it was, John, this was embarrassing to watch. Bismarck Biyombo.
And this goes to Claxton's recent good stretch. Hello, he defeated Grandpa Taj Gibson twice. The guy scored in her own basket, and then you defeated Embiid on one leg. And Claxton's walking around like he big machismo. No, you're not. You just got destroyed by Bismarck Biyombo. That destroys all your credibility right there. But again, the real culprit here, Gary, is Sean Marks. Again, another contract. This guy cannot control his bank account number. He throws out money left and right. I mean, Alan Crabb, Nick Claxton, the comparison writes itself. Like, this guy gives out some of the worst contracts ever. The only good contract he ever gave out was Kevin Durant because that guy showed up and balled. Other than that, this guy's giving out a lot of bad money deals. Hell, the Patty Mills contract over Bruce Brown was a bad deal for 2 years. Like at the end of the day, Marks doesn't have an understanding of talent. At the end of the day, you should have traded Claxton probably in a sign-and trade than give him that money because now he's on the contract. He was doing that Dennis Rodman stuff, and now he's got fatherhood coming. It seems Claxton just doesn't know what he wants to do on the court on any given night. Some nights he looks good. Most nights he looks bad or average. So we have to really figure out how to get out from under this. And our only out this summer is the Lakers because they need a center and need a defensive center. And Claxton, paired with two stars like we've seen with KD and Kyrie, he can hit his potential. We can't be at that level right now because we're technically rebuilding. So if that's our only out, take the out, Sean Marks. Take it and run. Because if you don't, we are stuck with Nick Claxton, who might get served up to more Bismarck Biyombo type centers in the future. And that is just something I don't want Brooklyn fans to be a part of because it's just embarrassing to watch, especially given Claxton got all that money without any accolades to his name. That's a hard one to swallow right there. That's a hard pill to swallow right there.
D'Angelo Russell, not to change the subject, we're going to get back to Claxton. D'Angelo Russell in 25 minutes in a game that you got blown out in was a +7. That's interesting. How is that like? That's I don't even know what to make of that. Like, that's interesting.
I still can't believe Chris Paul had a +31 at almost 40 years old. That's wild. It feels like it feels like you took shrooms and you look at the stat score. That's not what's supposed to say, but it does. Like, that's how crazy some of these stats are on that side.
I want to get back to Claxton, and this is a misnomer I hear from a lot of casuals when they say this guy is a good defensive player. Well, what does that mean? Because Nick Claxton is a good defensive player, except obviously he's not because he gets bullied by every center who has any girth, any strength to him. Absolutely big boys, Nick Claxton, right? So, like, what do we mean? What we mean is he's a good switch defender. He's a good perimeter defender. Nick Claxton, they say he can guard 1-5s. Can Nick Claxton guard fives?
Not consistently enough. He's an undersized
Yeah,
power forward.
he's a center who can't guard fives, but he's a good defensive player. It's like, not really. He's got a specific skill set, which I think is valuable on the defensive end. But like, if you have a bad defensive team, and then you add Nick Claxton, you have a bad defensive team who can't defend big fives.
Right.
I understand there's not a bunch of big fives in the league. They don't have to be good. They just have to be big. And then you can Bismarck Biyombo Nick Claxton. He got ethered by him last night, by Bismarck Biyombo. Like, he got his stuff stuffed in by Bismarck Biyombo. I couldn't believe what I'm watching. Like, John's texting me and like, Biyombo looks like, prime Robert Parrish here going to work on Nick Claxton. It's like, oh my God.
That's insane. And at the end of the day, like to me, Claxton just doesn't seem set or focused on what he wants to do on the court. And defensively, some nights he's okay. Most nights he looks very average, and he can't handle actual big time players. So that's my whole deal. And you think about this: Claxton's best career numbers were with James Harden, Kyrie, and KD. So you have to gut your whole team, get two to three superstars on this team for Claxton to start playing meaningful basketball. Oh, and he's making $27 million, Gary, on top of it. That's how a roster dies. If you have to do all that work, if you have to sacrifice depth to get two superstars on a team just so Claxton can offensively get his numbers up, that's where the formula doesn't work with Claxton anymore, guys. We can't get two superstars anymore with a new CBA without gutting our roster. So if we have to maximize Claxton, we have to get two superstars to do it. It's not worth it for us. The Lakers, they can do it right now. They have two superstars in Luka and LeBron. So send Claxton there. Let them take the financial burden of Claxton's contract. We can't do it. We can't just get two random stars because by then Claxton's money is already hooking us. So it just seems like the only way forward is trying to find a way to get out from under this contract because his numbers don't match up with what he's supposed to deliver on night-to-night basis. And having to sacrifice our depth to get two new stars to make Claxton offense better, it's not worth it for Brooklyn right now. We have to get out from under this contract because we're looking at a nightmare scenario where this guy is averaging 6 or 7 points and getting creamed by centers who weren't even playing this year. He wasn't even playing this year, Gary.
What's the name of the little Japanese point guard that was on Memphis? That killed it in the summer league. The little Japanese guy's like 5'8". What was his name?
I gotta look it up. Let me look up the roster. I'll get you in a second, Gary.
But my question is, could he score on Nick Claxton? Could he post up Nick Claxton and manhandle Nick Claxton on the block? I think he could.
Probably.
I've never seen he gets manhandled. He gets big boyed by everybody, and we're paying him 20. He's got no offensive game, and he can't hold down the block. Explain to me why we're paying him, and I want to get onto it, John. So there's two questions. We came up with one team that we could realistically trade him to,
right?
The Lakers, because he sucks less than Jackson Hayes sucks. My guess is we're going to have to take Jackson Hayes back in that deal. Realistically, do you think that we can still move him to LA?
I think we can. As great as the Lakers have looked so far this season, they have a huge gap with not having a legit center. Jackson Hayes, listen, if he's going up against some of the best bigs in that heavy Western Conference, they're going to eat that kid alive. So for me, I feel like the Lakers could be at worst a second-round exit. So I feel like if they surpass expectations there, great, but they still need an actual big. And Luka needs an actual big that can defend well and cover for him. Let's remember how many what's the percentage of players scoring against Luka? 40-something%. That's not good. He needs a backup center, or not backup center, but he needs a center to back him up on the court and do that defensive dirty work to protect him. And I think Claxton fits the bill for both LeBron and Claxton, where they could dispense the ball and find Claxton for an easy 10 points a night. So I feel like the writing is there. I feel like the contracts that they have, a Rui Hachimura, they have Gabe Vincent, and they have Jack. I think Jackson is an expiring contract this year.
Yeah,
Gary.
you're right. He is expiring. You're right. He is expiring.
So they have Vincent and Rui, one or two. They're both expiring. Lines up well with our cap space situation going to next year's free agency. So the deal writes itself. It's just, will the Lakers actually want it? I think they should. And will Brooklyn want it? Yeah, we should. Getting off of Claxton's contract will give us ultimate cap space flexibility and allow us to actually go a variety of ways with this rebuild iteration of what we're trying to do. But with Claxton's contract on the books, it's an anchor, especially when the guy isn't matching up to the money he's been given. So I feel like this summer, it really is one of our only outs with Claxton. If he's not gone this summer, you're kind of stuck with him unless a team still sees value with him defensively, because offensively, you have to have 3 stars on a team to maximize Claxton's offense. And a lot of teams can't gut their rosters to make
Yeah, well,
Claxton happy.
yeah, you need a pick and roll point guard who can lob like Luke. It just makes sense on the Lakers, right? Like, yeah. So he fits in with the Lakers kind of like he did on the Nets' big three. Like, it just makes a bit more sense than he does here. And again, he's got, like I said, a specific skill set. The only question becomes, do the Lakers look at this? And his contract goes down every year, thank God. So it gets worse. It gets, a little bit less bad every year. It doesn't get worse. It gets a little bit better. The cap goes up. His contract goes down. The Lakers need to look at this and be like, all right, so there's 3 years, 70 whatever million left on this deal, whatever it is. Am I willing to pay that, right? Because the fit makes sense for the Lakers. But does the price make sense? It's a lot of money for a limited player, right? And I think that's what the Nets are going to have to overcome. Yes, we'll take Rui off your hands. That helps. But the question is, like, if I'm the Lakers, I'm looking at this contract for a guy I know is limited. Is it simply too much money?
I don't think so necessarily. And let's remember, LeBron James at the end of his career, he might sign one final contract with the Lakers, which would be a 1-year deal or maybe a 2-year deal with an option, something like that. LeBron's not going to be around there much longer. So Luka is their future franchise guy, and he needs pieces around him. Claxton could be one of those pieces. And once LeBron's contract ends, the Lakers should have some interesting cap space flexibility of their own to go get actual pieces to put around Luka. And Claxton defensively helps give the Lakers some type of identity, and he should relish being in LA. He likes the Hollywood lifestyle, all that fancy stuff, right? So that should be a fun combination right there. And Luka needs defense around him, or else that Lakers team is going to get destroyed on a night-to-night basis, regardless of how much Luka magic they get, because Luka defensively is a huge liability. And Claxton has shown you, if he's surrounded with stars, he can do the defensive work a lot better and find his offensive opportunities with decent stars. So I think it makes sense for the Lakers in the long run, because they're thinking about life without LeBron already with getting Luka, and Claxton does help solve a piece of that puzzle. And I would say this, if we get off Claxton, get rid of Cam Johnson right after draft night. Spurs and OKC, they have multiple picks. Both of them have interest in Johnson. We can move off of both Claxton and Johnson this summer, Gary. Our cap space flexibility should be dynamic. It should be so big that we have multiple avenues towards building this team the right way. And right now,
let me stop you right there. We know that Sean Marks doesn't like to trade people that he likes, because apparently this is like a boys club, right? Like, it's a treehouse. So realistically, I would trade Cam Johnson. You would trade Cam Johnson. I would trade Nick Claxton. You would trade Nick Claxton, because it's a goddamn business, not a treehouse. But is Sean Marks, who likes his guys, likes who he likes, is he going to trade those guys? Like, we have to deal with what we have here, and we have Sean Marks. Is he going to trade those guys, or is he going to keep them because he likes them?
This should not be about like. I understand he gave the guy the pro comment. Listen, there's nothing.
Is it about like with him?
There's nothing exciting about Cam Johnson.
Mills and let Bruce Brown walk.
Listen, there's nothing exciting about Cam Johnson. The guy is more boring than rice pudding. I know he does podcasts and all that stuff, and people like the good guy nature that he possesses. But on this team, is he a foundational piece? Hell no. He's going to be 30 years old next year. We got to start thinking about getting the best value you can. And Evan Sear put out a report yesterday that teams are still interested in Johnson, and they're just waiting for Marks to lower the price. And hello, draft night's the perfect night. We can move up 4 or 5 slots by trading Johnson to get another team's pick. A Spurs team who wants to be competitive and contend in the future, they have an interest in Johnson. They still have Harrison Barnes, right, Gary? The Spurs do. Harrison Barnes and their pick this year for Cam Johnson this summer. There you go. It's so easy. All Marks has to do is pull the lever and make the deal happen. There's no reason Johnson should be on our team in his early 30s in a year or two from now, because that's just a contract that's going to haunt us and destroy what potentially could have been a chance to cash in for real value. The only chance we have to get rid of Johnson this summer is move him on draft night, to move up a few slots and get another potential lottery prospect. And I think the Spurs and OKC are probably our 2 best chances, because they are the 2 teams in that lottery bracket that want to compete and contend in the near future. So if Sean Marks can't even take that out, you're right, Gary. We're going to have problems if both Claxton and Johnson are on this team going to next year because they honestly shouldn't be.
The chat is alive right now. Player one says Prime Magic couldn't help Claxton, bro. It's just a visually get better. It does look like that. I'm not gonna
That's
lie, it
wild.
looks like that. Laura says, can we hypnotize Sean Marks into liking a top 3 pick? Yeah, how do we do that? Like, if he really liked having a good pick, we'd lose every game. We'd be doing what Toronto and Utah. Oh, Toronto won yesterday, by the way. We'd be doing what they're doing, right? How do we get Sean Marks to like the idea of drafting in the top 3?
And listen, this summer is one of the most important summer in Brooklyn history. My problem is the
It's
organization has
not
not
anymore,
treated
though.
it.
Like, we missed it. It was supposed to be, but we've missed it. We're going to draft 9 and 18.
There's still time. If we don't make the play-in, everything could change. But if we make the play-in, you really are risking the pick going from 1 to 15. Like, this is insane. This is why the organization needs to come together this summer and talk to each other and be like, what's going on here? Because it feels like the coach and the ownership and the GM, none of them are on the same pages. You got one guy doing AI technology. You got the other guy saying Cam Johnson's the best thing since sliced bread. And you got a coach saying that Keon Johnson and these other guys are a part of our future. That's not right. Like, there needs to be unified goals here. So this summer, this draft, there's a chance to move up in this draft. And, we shouldn't be content with who we select. There are 3 picks right now. They're near the top 20. We have over 31 picks. We should be able to realistically move up in this draft. And if Sean Marks can't even take advantage of the assets he has to do that, he can't be in charge. If you can't be flexible with power, how can you be in charge of a basketball team? So this organization has a very important summer coming up, and they can't afford to be laissez-faire like they were this season. They really can't, or else we're doomed, to put it bluntly.
Two things I want to address there. First, Star Traffic's comment. Jace Richards, is he a guard out of Michigan State? I don't know a ton about him. I think he's a freshman, is he not? I don't know a ton about him. Would be a good second-round pick for the Nets. I know who he is. I just don't really know anything about him. Any thoughts on Jace Richardson?
Yeah, I don't know too much about his game, but I will say there are some definitely interesting second round picks. There's this guy, I think he's a forward. His name is Carter Bryant, 225 pounds. He can do a little bit of everything. He's got athleticism, defense. He just can't create offense right now, but he has those raw skill sets that any coach would want. So if we could get a guy like a Carter Bryant, 225 pounds, a forward in this draft with a second round pick, I think that would be a good way to use that. I will say this, Marks and his team have been able to find some interesting players in the second round. So definitely wouldn't count out that pick in this year's draft, but it has to be a smart pick. Can't be a guy that's repetitive. We got to get rid of the repetitiveness on this team. We need versatility, switchability. Those are the types of prospects we should look at this summer. And if we get the same type of prospects that are mundane, it's not a good way of Sean Marks saying he's good at drafting. You have to be able to find versatile players. So that second round pick could be important for us, depending on who we use to draft it with.
Says I like Wolf and Sheer Fleming, but they are a bit older. I mean, I'm open to a lot of things. Like, let's find out where we're picking first.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We got to find out. May 12th. May 12th.
Segues me into this. I think you're right. I think we should somewhat prioritize drafting a big. We never have a big. There are good bigs in this draft that I may want to draft. But what is Sean Marks going to do? Is he going to prioritize a big because we desperately need a big? Or is he going to say, we have Nick Claxton, we're good at bigs? I'm being serious, John. Like, I'm asking you not what you would do. What is Sean Marks going to do? Is he going to realize that we need a big? Or is he going to say, no, we're good at bigs. We have Nick Claxton.
He really should, and it's not that I'm saying that what I want, but just looking at Claxton's number this year, everybody admits. I even read the sports articles. Claxton has had a very subpar year in his first year of the 4-year contract. Like, he's lost to some competition that he should be very competitive against, or at least dominating. He hasn't done that. So, and Dayrod as well is going to be a free agent. You have a lot to figure out with your center position, and there are a lot of decent centers. It would be hard for me to see him draft Common Maliwak because he's a 7-footer. And Marks doesn't like 7-footers. That's why I think Derek Queen, if we had the sixth or 7th pick in the lottery, we could go after Derek Queen because he's around 6'10", 6'11". But offensively, he's way better than what we have with Claxton Daron right now. And also Thomas Sorber, very gettable now. He could be in top 20 because of the little injury he has with his leg, but he's one of the best rebounders that I've seen in this draft class. and he's got a decent build, and he can rebound a high clip. And offensively, he was around 50%. He could be that potential center of the future for us. So there are some very interesting options in this draft, and we should get at least one of those bigs, whether it's with a lottery pick or with one of our late picks. We need another big. Dayron and Claxton, to me, don't look like they're going to be a part of a championship run for us because they have so many flaws to their games, and the only way to solve those flaws would be to get superstars. But we don't have a core right now. So you have to figure out, you might have to get rid of one of them or both of them, or keep one and draft an actual center. You and I have agreed. Keep Dayron, send Claxton to the Lakers, and draft a new center. Kind of reset your cap space a little bit and get you center your future. But will Marks do it? He's shown us that he's not really flexible right now, and he kind of seems stuck in mid-gear.
Um, this is beyond frustrating. I wonder, as a hypothetical, if we were to draft Thomas Sorber with the Bucks pick and Trey Johnson, who I like, with our pick. So let's say you draft 6 and you draft 19, and you get those two guys. You get Sorber and you get Trey Johnson. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think it's a decent building blocks, and Trey would be within the top 6. I said top 6 is important. No, top 3 was the ultimate goal, but given how bad the organization did this year, I would be happy with top 6 because Trey Johnson is one of the best shot creators. Now, we've had discussions, and we're going to have debates if we draft Johnson. Are him and Thomas a duo, or is one better than the other? That will all be figured out in due time. But getting an offensive shot creator like Trey Johnson would be huge because we need an offensive identity, and Trey Johnson will no doubt play a role in that. And if you get Thomas Sorber, a potential center of your future, I think you're addressing areas of need and you're getting building block pieces. But obviously, we'd have to hope that the following draft would get us even more core pieces, and then you have the making of something. So I'd be happy with a Thomas Sorber and Trey Johnson, and I would even try to get Boogie Fland because let's remember Trey Johnson, he's a shooting guard and at the 3, right, Gary? He's at the 2 and the 3. That's how they have him rated right now. If you
Trey
get Boogie,
Johnson, yeah. Oh,
you get
you
Boogie
said
Fland, he could be your backup point guard. So I would be happy if you got Boogie, Trey, and Thomas Orpis. We get 3 areas of need there. So I would be okay with that as well.
I keep putting on Arkansas games. I'm like, oh, that's right. Boogie's not playing. I've done it
I
like 5
know.
times. Oh, yeah, no Boogie. Where is Boogie projected to go now?
He's going to be in top 20 with Sorber. He was around before he got hurt, he
Yeah,
was
I saw
around the 12.
low.
He was
Six,
around 12
seven,
to
eight. I
13
saw
in
him
the
in the top
lottery.
10. Yeah.
But now he's around top 20, which is great for us. That's the great thing. Thomas Sorber and Boogie Flynn, two, I think, solid prospects are going to be top 20 because of injuries. And we have 3 late picks. We should be able to attach those picks to move up to get at least one of those guys. If we get 2, great, but get one of those guys. If Marks doesn't do that and just drafts whoever he gets with the 25, 26 pick, failure. That's a failure. You let another team just get a Sorber and Boogie for free at that point. So I would hope to get 1 or 2 of those guys because I think they could both be building blocks to what we're trying to create right here.
Boogie Flynn is garbage. I've had this conversation with Nate too on this channel. Nate has concerns that his game doesn't really translate in today's NBA. I like him. I see the concerns. What are your thoughts on Boogie Flynn? He's not a good enough shooter. He's not athletic enough. His game doesn't really translate. Like he's better suited for another era. Like what are your thoughts
This is
on
all
that?
about his height. This is the Trey Young argument, right? He's undersized. Defensively, you're worried. Offensively, gives him stuff, but that's not enough. Listen, what I see from Boogie Flynn, what I've seen, the kid is a bullet on the court. He's got Tyrese Maxey speed. And the one thing I notice about our team is we don't have a lot of solid runners. Like, we have no real speed on this team. We need somebody like that can create offense, pass up the ball a little bit, and just give you that energy. I feel like Boogie Flynn, the name itself, is something that fits your culture and what you're trying to build. And he could be a decent backup point guard for us. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but we need role pieces as well, and Boogie could potentially fit that mold. But if we're just going to dig on the guy because of his height, watch what he can actually do on the court. And I think Jordy would revel having somebody like that keeps the energy alive and could give you some decent scoring. So I wouldn't say he's a bad prospect at all in that regard.
All right. I want to transition back to yesterday's game. We didn't get into this. Zaire Williams, who we all like Zaire. We all root for him. A lot of effort, high energy guy. Let's just talk about he's a starter. That he's a starting 4. He will again. It's one day, but he's got obvious weaknesses. And I'm not saying he has no spot on this roster that he's not an NBA player. He's an NBA player. He's a backup. He was a minus 30 yesterday, John. Your thoughts on
Yeah,
Zaire
listen,
Williams?
obviously disappointing. One of his worst games of the season, and you got a guy like Chris Paul who has a plus 31, which shouldn't happen. But every player has a bad day, right? Especially on a team like this. But one thing I would
100%.
say about Zaire, he's been consistent most of the year. He's giving you defensive effort. He's been a pit bull. Like I really believe what he said when he said he felt free on this team. He likes that Jordan, the coach staff, gets in his face, challenges him, and his 3-point shot has gotten better since he came back from that little knee injury he had. So I think he's been the most consistent and probably the first reclamation project that's been successful under Jordy. So I'm not going to say this one bad game is what ends him getting a contract with this team. That'd be
No,
ludicrous. But
I'm not even saying don't bring him back. I think he has a spot on this roster. I think he has a role in the NBA. Is he a starting power forward in the NBA?
not for us. He would definitely be
Not for
a good
anybody. I
role.
mean,
Yeah. But like, he'd be a good role piece. But I will take what he gives you on that end than I would at Keon Johnson, because Keon's been a bull hog we see in the last few weeks. And the great thing about Zaire, he's been very unselfish this year. Found his shots when he can and hit them when he can. So I like that Zaire is a teammate first. Pitbull energy on defense and offense. He's tried to figure out some things this year. So I definitely think he fits our future and fits our identity more than the Keon Johnsons on this team do. So that's out. If I'm trying to give people an argument why this should not be a huge reason, I would look to that. I would say Zaire's been more consistent this year, and his effort has been more meaningful towards what we're trying to build here than a guy like a Keon Johnson would be, because he's a ball hog.
the hot takes on Boogie Fun is out. Boogie Fun is not a good point guard. He's not a good penetrating and dishing guard. Xavier Lee can be got in the second round. What are your thoughts on him as a prototypical penetrating pitch point guard?
Listen, I think the one thing that people are going to ding Boogie on is the height factor. If he can't has no athletic finish at the rim, if he can't
But
get
how's
to the
his
rim and
vision?
handle physicality.
What do you think of his vision
I
as a
think
point
he's
guard?
got some decent vision. He could pass the ball. He's got speed, right? How can you use speed to your advantage? Throw it to the other guy when nobody's looking, because the thing is, his speed will have people playing defense on him, and that's going to leave guys open. So I think Boogie, he's going to try to be a good teammate first and try to find his shot when he can. And I like the speed that this kid has. You need that in the NBA league, especially if you have a team that's built on veterans. You need a guy that give you that energy once in a while. So I think Boogie does fit the mold of what we're trying to build. And I think he'd be a decent backup point guard. I think that's a decent ceiling for him right now. I don't know if he's going to be a starter, but a backup point guard is something we're looking for right now. And I think Boogie could potentially be somebody like that, especially if we don't get a top point guard in this draft. He's going to be around that 20 bracket. We have 30 picks, and we have 3 picks in that 20 bracket. So if you could get Boogie, I would say give him a chance, see what he can learn under Jordan, and see how he can get his game to be better than what Star Traffic's seen that he hasn't liked about Boogie so far. So I wouldn't write Boogie off at all right now.
All right, and as far as Zaire, I want to ask you this question: Zaire and Daron Sharp, you can only bring one of them back hypothetically. Not saying you can't bring both of them back. You can, but hypothetical. You can only bring one of them back. Zaire or Daron, who would you bring back on the same money?
I would bring Zaire back right now. I think he's been very
Really? Okay,
yeah.
I'd bring Daron back. Okay, why Zaire?
Because he's been very consistent this year. He fits a bench role for us. He fits the defensive identity more. And I'm not trying to knock on Dayron, but I think Dayron's being a bit unfairly treated on this team. He's not getting the burn. If Claxton's getting 30 minutes a night and he's playing garbage, Gary, against a guy like Bismarck Biombo, and Dayron can only play 16 to 20 minutes a night and he's getting in foul trouble, it's because Dayron is not getting the right minutes. He had a great game against OKC, and after that, his minutes got cut again. So I just feel like it's a waste of time to bring Dayron back if he's not going to get the right amount of minutes on this team and not be able to grow his game efficiently. So I would bring Zaire back, because Zaire knows his role, does his role well, and defensively fits the identity we're trying to build on this team. So if Claxton's going to still be on this team, I think I would consider drafting a Thomas Sorber than bring a Dayron back at this point, because I just feel Dayron is not getting the minutes to really grow his game, and we kind of see the flaws for what they are with Dayron. He's a backup center. It's not going to be a starting center, I don't think.
He's a backup center like David is a backup forward. Zaire is a backup forward. Zaire can play the backup 3, he can play the backup 4, but you can't really close a game with Zaire Williams. He doesn't offer you anything offensively.
On defense, you can close with him as opposed to
it depends
Dayron.
it depends on the other 4, because you don't really have to account for him defensively. You really don't. You can leave him in the corner. You can. You don't really have to account for him, and that's my problem with him. I don't think that he's the worst player in the world. I think he has a role, but I don't think that you can finish games with him. I think in finishing time on a decent team, he has to be on the bench because you don't have to account for him. You can just leave him. You can just leave him out there. So Dayron, I know what he gives me. He's a premier offensive rebounder. He's getting better at finishing. He's not getting the ball slapped away and getting blocked by the rim. Like I see the improvement. I know what he offers me, which is a premier offensive rebounder, which is a valuable skill. I don't mind bringing both of them back. I would probably prefer him to bring both back. But if I had to choose, I would choose Dayron because we get killed on the boards every night. It's like we're getting cooked on the boards every night. We have one of the league's premier rebounders. I've got this crazy idea. How about you put the premier rebounder in the game? How about that? It's wild, but it might work, right?
Well, here's an idea I have for you. I've talked to people about this. Would you consider going to a three-man center trio if let's say we keep Claxton and Dayron and we drafted Thomas Harper? Would you do that, Gary? But you would run the risk with Dayron not playing a lot of minutes. He's already not playing right now. So would you do that? Because somebody made a valid point. A lot of teams have three centers on the team, especially if their team's trying to build something. Would you go with a three-man center core or not? Just go with two at this point.
It's going to be tough, right? So we're paying Nick Claxton 25. I would, yes, but in this particular situation, it might be tough. So we're paying Claxton 25 next year. You're going to pay Dayron about 10. So you're paying $35 million for the center position, and then you're drafting a center because center is a weakness. You see what I'm saying? It's a tough situation to be in. We're spending a hell of a lot of money at the center position to then go and draft the center because the centers we have aren't that good. That's what I'm saying. You've got to get rid of Claxton. I'd rather get rid of Claxton than Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson gives me a role. Claxton's got to go, bro. He's going to stop this team from being good. You're playing a guy who's you're paying a guy who's largely unplayable $25 million a year.
It doesn't make sense. And forget your financial flex. Forget your financial flexibility, roster flexibility. If Dayron's getting a lesser deal, but he's still not getting the right minutes, and Claxton's still playing bad, how does that make your team better in the long run? It doesn't. And Dayron's never going to get a start over Claxton unless Claxton's either injured or he needs an off day. So those moments for Dayron to have those OKC games are very few in between. That's why I feel bad for Dayron because he should probably be getting more minutes, even as a backup, but he's not. And I just feel like that's going to hurt us if we keep Dayron any longer, if he's not going to be able to get that time allotment he should. So that's why you got to kind of get rid of Claxton at this point. If he's not going to get better, if he's not going to offensively take those leaps we've been talking about for, I think, like months now, what is the point of keeping a guy making $20 million salary? You can't bench Claxton making $20 million, so you have to call an order this summer, talk to the Lakers, say, Pelinka, I know you guys need a center. You have some expiring contracts. Give me some second picks or a protected first. Let's do business and let's move forward. Because if we get rid of Claxton, we have the cap space flexibility to go a multitude of directions, even more than we already do right now. So I feel like that betters us, and it lets Claxton go play better ball. But he's not going to play it on this team right now, especially making $20 million, and we can't even get good roster pieces because of his contract. That's got to change.
I want to address this real quick. So the very winnable games I thought that we would win that we had in this little stretch: Washington, Portland, and San Antonio. We lost all three of them. We got blown out badly in two of them. Up next, we got the Warriors. The Hornets will probably win. The Lakers and the Cavs. We're probably going to lose we're going to lose 3 out of 4. On top of the 5 in a row we've lost. Do you feel a little bit better about the tank? That we've lost all of these games I thought that we would win.
I feel a bit better about Operation Damage Control. We can't even say necessarily tank. We can say maybe the organization woke up and it's like, hey, we got 20 games left. We were half a game away from a playing spot. No good. Let's start managing players. Okay, you waited till the end of the season. I guess I got to give you some credit, but you could have done this months ago. But you know, asking this organization to use logic is like asking a dinosaur to jump in the air and fly at the same time. Only a pterodactyl can do that. Only a pterodactyl can do that, not a regular dinosaur. So there you go. So, yeah, listen, at the end of the day, I feel better about it. The Raptors, I don't know if they wanted to win the game last night. That three-point shot, the one of the young guys got off, it was like a crazy shot, and it somehow went in the hoop. If the Raptors accidentally want to win more games, we'll take it. But I just got to give the Raptors a lot of credit. They were one of the smartest strategic tanking teams. Already got your franchise guy. You got Ingram, who could be a third guy. Now it's about getting that second star prospect. They did this a lot smarter than we do. And if they get ahead of us, Brooklyn should be sending a couple thank you cards because probably we shouldn't be in that spot if they're going to start winning games. So if the Raptors get ahead of us, that would give us the fifth best odds. So I would feel better about that. But just as long as we don't make the play-in, I feel like we have a shot at getting in the top six. But if you make the play-in, that pick could be anywhere from 1 to 15. And it just makes no sense considering what we gave up to get our own picks back. So we still have time to right the ship. We have some tough games coming up. Get through the games, get the results you got to get, and let these guys play or develop and see who could be on this team next year or not. The Maxwell Lewises and some of these other young guys like Derek Whiteheads should be showing us if they can handle a role in this team. Rest the D'Lo, Claxton, and Johnsons and get ready for next year. That's what our mindset should be. It should not be, hey, let's get in the play-in for whatever weird-ass reason.
I personally feel better about this, right? You look at it now, I don't know if we can get beyond 5, right? Like New Orleans at 17-45. I don't know that they're going to win enough games to catch us, but I really think Toronto will catch us. Their schedule is so easy, right? Like even if they tank, they have so many easy games that I think the Nets, Toronto will win more games than the Nets. Philly's a question. I mean, Philly's doing a great job of losing too. They're losing left and right. I don't know. Like we're going to be in that 5, 6, 7 range. Hopefully we finish 5. If we finish 5, we have a 42% chance of drafting in the top 4. If we, like I can live with that. I mean, this tank obviously didn't go as expected. The season's been weird, but I think we can get there, John. I think we didn't tank properly, but at the end of the day, it may not be that bad. If we're finished with a bottom 5 record in the NBA, we could draft 1, 2, 3. Maybe we could. I mean, we could draft 8 or 9, but we could, we have a realistic shot.
It would be amazing if that happens. I just think the script would be perfect. You draft the Rutgers guys, your first ever prospect in Brooklyn history. The media outlets eat it up. The story writes itself. The merchandise, all those storylines. Like that's what Brooklyn needs to rejuvenate the fan base. I want the base to get a top pick this year because I feel like the base has been through a crazy roller coaster ride that this organization self-inflicted a lot of times. So to get a top pick would kind of, I wouldn't say erase all the bad that happened, but it would allow you to actually have a fresh new chapter be written in Brooklyn lore. So it would be great if it works out, but I would just be fine with top 6 at this point because we didn't do this the right way this year. And if we just missed the play-in, hey, you finally woke up, but you could have done this a lot sooner. So if we get top 6 this year, I'll be happy with that because you could find a top prospect there and have a real building block for your future. So if that works out for us, we could finally start building out this core the way that we should. And that's way better than what is on this team right now. So this summer, like I keep saying, is the most important in Brooklyn Nets history because this is really what starts it. And you want to start it right. You don't want to start it drafting Knippel with the 10th pick. So I think the odds are kind of coming back in our favor, but still a lot of work to be done. But if we can make this happen, I think the Brooklyn world is going to party like it's 1999.
This has been a wild, crazy season. It's been, 9-10 start, then we lose 15 out of 17, then we win 7 out of 9. Now we're losing all these games again. I don't even know what to do as a fan anymore. Since I started rooting for wins, we're 0-5, right? I mean, since we got into it, I was like, all right, let's win some games. We have some winnable games. We've got 3 of the next 5 games are winnable. We'll catch Chicago. We go 0-5, we lose all of them. I don't know what to make of this season anymore, but now I think we're back to rooting. I know you and Dylan never really went to rooting for wins. I did, and then we've lost 5 in a row since I started. I don't know, John. I don't know what to make of this season. We play again tomorrow, so you want to take tomorrow off and then be back on Friday?
Yeah, we could do that. What's Friday?
We got Golden State Thursday.
Right. Oh yeah. So we'll definitely cover that game, and then I think we have a game on the weekend. So I don't know if I'll be available Monday, but after that I should be available. So we'll definitely do Friday, and we'll do the coverage of that game. But yeah, great show today. And yeah, Gary, listen, we don't understand the organization's thought process. To me, I'm trying to make do of what I've seen. It just seems like this organization every year there's no set direction. There's an idea, but you need to be able to turn that idea into substance and something that can actually be sustainable. We have never gotten to sustainability, and you can't say you're a legit team if you don't have sustainability. Like the Warriors dynasty, the Boston dynasties, you have to get to that level. You have to be willing to make the right moves and make things balanced. This organization has not done that yet. You have the right coach. I feel great about Jordan being our coach of the future, But now it's about the talent, and this draft is going to make or break. I think the fan base's whatever remaining trust they have in this organization. I hope it works out so they have something to brag about. But if they don't, everything that I've been saying is not to hate on these guys, but to call out what has to be called out and keep it 100. So we'll see what happens May 12th, but we still have about 21 games left, and let's hope the odds are forever in Brooklyn's favor. Hunger Games reference right there.
Appreciate that, John. I appreciate that. All right. It is March 5th, 2025. Any closing thoughts, John? Anything you want to close out with?
Yeah. Good luck on Thursday and play Reese Beekman.
35 minutes a game if you want to lose.
Facts.
Say it out loud. Let's win every single game, Lou. I don't know anymore, man. I don't know what to do with these wins and losses anymore, Lou. All right. It's March 5th, 2025. From Texas to the world. Thank you and God bless.
Peace.